You guys are still alive? Yeah! Holy sh**.
The average person touches their face 2,000 or 3,000 times a day. 3 to 5 times every waking minute.
You gotta isolate the sick, and I mean really isolate them. We gotta get everybody else back into the houses. We gotta keep them there. We're doing that. No, we're not doing it. And if one of them has got it, then 10 of them have got it.
What does it mean? Judy, what does it mean?
They're checking for elevated temperatures. It's gotta be some kind of virus.
If you just tell us what's going on, maybe we can actually help you.
Time to nut up or shut up.
Welcome everyone to Apocalyptic, the pandemic podcast, and we are watching pandemic movies and reviewing them during this time when COVID-19 is rampaging throughout the world, and we were inspired by that to watch pandemic movies. So we will first check in with everyone's quarantine life. Andrew, how about yourself?
Hi. I have my 1-bedroom apartment here in San Diego, and yeah, I gotta say, it's been good for the most part. There are some times that I feel like I'm going stir crazy. Also, being single during the quarantine days is an interesting thing. Quick little story. So, as a single quarantine guy, I'm on Tinder and I matched with a pretty lady, and in her bio she had an Instagram link, and so I did the background check of checking her Instagram out, and that day. In her Instagram story, I saw that I counted, there were 9 people in this shot, and they were all just having brunch outside together, hunched around this small table. And I was just like, what the fuck? It's like, how many times do we have to go through this? Anyway, so I messaged her real quick, and I was just like, why? And then she sent me question marks. And I just said, go inside. And I unmatched her, so it didn't work out. But that's how life has been.
I think you're probably making a decision for the best.
But bye, Felicia.
Well, all right, Chris, what about you?
Well, we've been attempting to tame our yards during this, and so the wife and I have been trying to turn Fern Gully into something that's a little bit more visually appealing to our neighbors. So every day we basically trade off looking after the kid, and then Anna's been putting in some hedges, and I've been mowing the lawn and cutting palm tree branches, and so it's kind of a combination of Groundhog Day and the Home and Garden Channel. So that's about the extent of what we've been doing.
Not much has changed, I suppose, except it's kind of just forcing you to do it all now. But it doesn't sound like much has really shifted in some sense.
No, yeah, it's instead of just doing this 1 day a week, now it's just doing it 7 days a week. So I'm hoping that by the summertime, the yard will look nice enough that we can take photographs, since we won't probably be allowed to have people over yet.
That's true. What about you, Cammie?
Yeah, just still on my maternity leave, so loving it. The only thing is that I was really hoping around now that I'd be able to introduce more people to the baby now that first vaccines are done and all that, and it's been kind of a shame, but it's been nice to have Jeff working from home, because then we get to spend more time as a family. But again, I was really looking forward to enjoying some of the nice weather with more friends, but yeah, still enjoying the intimate times here though.
Has Clark gotten his chloroquine vaccine yet?
No, he got his forsythia. Hey, reference to the movie that we'll talk about soon.
Deep cuts.
What's funny is I haven't even mentioned what movie we're actually reviewing in this podcast yet, but we'll get there. As far as I think what I would say about my dealing with the quarantine right now is I find myself obsessively monitoring the new cases in the local area, and waiting till 5 p.m. when they get published. And it's probably not a healthy thing to be doing, but I'm just very interested, and I think it's kind of important information for decision making. But yeah, that's kind of
what. So you were talking, like, before we started recording, you were talking a little bit about that. I think this would be an interesting thing to maybe see, especially when you compare it to our movie that we're going to be discussing soon. What does it currently look like? Because we're all in San Diego.
Mm-hmm.
What does it currently look like here?
Well, it's like we're there. Currently right now, as we record this, there are 603 cases.
It's March 30th.
Yeah,
today.
2020. And we had the most additional cases today. Now, it's one of those things where yesterday there were actually a lot fewer than there was the previous 2 days. So maybe it's sort of a mix where just more people were diagnosed today, and Sunday they don't do as many tests. Who knows? But we're definitely seeing a pretty consistent increase, and we're probably in the beginning. And as we record this, the state of California has been asked to lock down, and everyone has been told to stay home. Every beach is closed. Every store is essentially closed. It's all just supermarkets and obviously power plants and water, and it is pretty crazy how much it correlates with the movie we're going to talk about. Like, there's definitely things to connect our current life to this movie.
Hopefully not too much.
Yeah, hopefully it doesn't go further. That's
It does sort of feel like we're living in a movie sometimes.
Yeah, it kind of does.
But the movie ends in 2 hours, and so you get resolution, and life just keeps going.
Like it feels like a slow-moving disaster. This feels like a freight train.
Yeah, because the move, not to jump too far ahead, but it seemed like things escalated a lot faster.
Yeah. Okay. Well, the movie that we're going to review today is Contagion, which has become very popular very recently because it's a very relevant storyline that connects to kind of what's happening in the world right now, right? So it was filmed in 2011, or came out in 2011, directed by Steven Soderbergh. A virus appears in the world, and it is particularly virulent. Like, essentially you get a fever, and there's a 25 to 30% chance they find out that you'll die. So essentially a character in the first few minutes, who's a very famous actress, dies in the first 10 minutes of the movie. And then the rest of the movie is essentially trying to contain this virus and seeing the effect that it has on the country as they do lockdowns, as they try and search for a vaccine, and deal with the repercussions within all that. If that sounds pretty familiar to people listening to this, it's striking how similar the storyline connects with what's happened with coronavirus and COVID-19. It's crazy, to the point where where the disease originates is in China. Like, that piece of the storyline is also in there, which is just kind of incredible. And so that's essentially the synopsis of the film, and it runs its course. There's a piece of the storyline where a conspiracy theorist with a blog essentially espouses a cure for the disease called forsythia, and essentially gets people excited about this homeopathic cure without any scientific evidence, which I think there's some correlation with also what's happening now, but we'll get to that later on down the line. Do you want to play the trailer, Andrew?
Yes, let's hit play.
It was a groundbreaking ceremony for a new factory.
Did she mention seeing anyone who was sick? Anyone on a plane, the airport?
No, she said she was jet lagged.
The average person touches their face 3 to 5 times every waking minute. In between, we're touching doorknobs, water fountains, and each other.
Matt. No, go up to your room, honey.
So we have a virus with no treatment protocol and no vaccine at this time.
You had a seizure this morning, Beth.
Does she have a history of seizures?
No.
Allergies?
As of last night, there were 32 cases.
Unfortunately, she did die.
Right. So can I go talk to her?
Mr. Amoff, your wife is dead.
What are you talking about?
Okay.
What happened to her? What happened to her?
Is there any way someone could weaponize the bird flu? Is that what we're looking at?
Someone doesn't have to weaponize the bird flu. The birds are doing that.
Watch this. It's transmission, so we just need to know which direction.
On day one, there were 2 people, and then 4, and then 16. In 3 months, it's 1 billion. That's where we're headed.
They're calling out the National Guard. They're moving the president underground. People will panic.
Get away!
It will tip over.
The truth is being kept from the world.
Cook your samples, destroy everything.
Hello. I need you to get me the names of everyone who serviced this room. It's an emergency.
You can't panic now.
I know.
I'm gonna get you home.
I got people too, Dr. Cheever. We all do.
Don't talk to anyone. Don't touch anyone. Stay away from other people.
Get back in your car. We're not sick.
It's figuring us out faster than we're figuring it out.
It's mutated.
That's a super serious trailer. I feel like the tone of our discussion even is going to be vastly different compared to Outbreak. Lot less campy.
Yeah.
The whole like the president has gone underground. I was like, wow, I wish.
Yeah, for sure.
God, that would be nice. You could finally shut the fuck up.
How did you guys feel watching this movie, by the way? Like, how did it feel?
So Anna and I watched it, I think, about 2 weeks ago, and I think that the scary thing that the movie does do a good job showing is how you have this slow breakdown of like services, and so it's hard to compare this to like a zombie apocalypse where it seems like everything shuts down immediately, whereas now we're starting to just see things getting their hours cut back. And so in the movie it shows that slowly garbage starts to pile up and that people slowly run out of food and they have to get MREs because there's just not enough, because it takes months and months and months. And so it just shows this really slow progression of everything, just kind of all the services kind of dying, and that's spooky.
Yeah, not only that, but also like supplies, like medical supplies. At a certain point, like the body count gets so high that they're saying, like they mentioned, like, oh, like when did the body bags run out? 2 days ago. That was really scary.
Yeah, we watched it 2 days ago,
Mm-hmm.
and I was terrified watching it. It was like the most unpleasant movie watching experience, honestly.
Yeah, we needed a chaser afterwards.
Yeah.
Honestly, it's Gwyneth Paltrow's best work.
She is quite good.
Yeah, maybe. It's funny because this movie, I think, came out in 2010 or 11.
2011.
Yeah, and technically to this day, it's considered a thriller. But it definitely now plays like a horror movie.
Or a documentary.
Or a documentary, yeah.
Yeah, mockumentary would be that's too silly.
I wonder, like, with all the like people renting it, like how much money it's made now versus when it was first released. It'd be interesting to see that.
I don't know, Chris, do you see what the box office was?
Oh yeah, well, so for Box Office Mojo, the budget was $60 million, and it made 75 domestically, and then another 60 internationally, so it made 140-ish worldwide. Which I think is kind of in line with where Outbreak was as far as numbers, where they were successful, but they weren't. I wonder what it is now with iTunes rentals and whatnot, because it was in the top 10 starting in late January again.
Yeah, to your point, Chris, Hollywood Reporter on January 28th posted or had a headline that says Contagion hits top 10 on iTunes. Yeah, that was back in January.
There's something to that. The fact that so many people were watching this movie in January, and that still wasn't. We hadn't gotten to the point where like testing was super important, but everyone knew enough of this to watch this movie, which makes it interesting that the general public may have been more concerned about it than the people that should have been.
As of March 30th, it currently sits at 7 on the iTunes store, which is wild.
Yeah, so people in the country knew this was a thing because they clearly had viruses on their mind.
The warnings were there, even outside of this movie.
One of the interesting parallels too with Contagion and with the current COVID-19 outbreak was there's the plot line in Contagion where Dr. Sussman, who disregards the order to destroy his samples.
Dr. Sussman's office.
Ian, hi, Allie Hextall.
We need to shut you down. This thing's too hot.
BSL-4 only at this point.
I think that's a mistake.
Cook your samples, destroy everything.
We can't risk it.
We're making progress. You limit this to government-run BSL-4s, it'll take forever. I can do this.
I'm sorry.
He finds a usable MEV1 cell culture after disregarding, the rules where you're supposed to destroy samples. And there was a story out of Washington State where there was either a hospital or someone who disregarded a similar ruling by the CDC to destroy their samples, and they kept kind of testing, and I guess they prevented a kid from going into a school in Washington State and potentially infecting a bunch of his classmates. So it's a strange coincidence that we had, life imitating art.
Yeah, well, the unfortunate thing is that when, I know this movie, when it was being developed, Steven Sonnenberg and his writing team worked really closely with the CDC. And it's amazing because in the movie, there's a part where they even reference, this was back in 2011, they reference social distancing.
The drug ribavirin has been shown to be effective against this virus. Yet, Homeland Security is telling the CDC not to make any announcements until stockpiles of the drug can be secured.
Well, Dr. Gupta, there continue to be evaluations of several drugs. Ribavirin is among them. But right now, our best defense has been social distancing. No handshaking, staying home when you're sick, washing your hands frequently.
So, the warnings were there, even outside of this movie, but here we are.
I saw a creepy photo of body bags in the back of a truck in New York.
Mm-hmm.
Freaked me out.
Yeah. What's crazy is there's a scene in the movie where I think it's in Minneapolis. I could be wrong with the location here, but it's in the United States. And you see these trenches that essentially they're just using to bury Axis bodies.
When did we run out of body bags? 2 days ago. We're trying to get more in from Canada, but they just want to wait and see.
And that's happening. Luckily not we'll see, but not in the United States yet, but it's happening overseas, in Iran, I believe.
Yeah, there was some satellite imagery that came out of some trenches being dug. It was in a graveyard, but they weren't building. They weren't digging individual graves. They were digging trenches to accommodate. Mm-hmm. One other thing that was interesting and maybe not relevant in the same sense as trenches, but there was some information that came out about the number of urns that were being sent to Wuhan, China, and how there was an order for 20,000 urns, and it's kind of going into this narrative right now that the numbers that came out of the amount of deaths in China may have not been the most accurate. Now, currently it's speculation based off of sort of external factors, like urns. There's been some information about how many fewer, or there are a bunch of canceled phone numbers. And essentially in China, you use your phone for everything. So if there's a lot of people that no longer need, their telecommunication phone number anymore, there might be a reason for that. And that was a crazy number. That was like there were 21 million numbers that were canceled. Now that seems a little far-fetched and still speculative, But it's just interesting, some of the theories, and sort of what the rationale is. And I don't think we're really ever going to have an idea of what actually happened um, in the interior of China. But who knows? Maybe we'll find out more information as time goes on.
Yeah, especially given the actions China took pretty early on. You'd be correct to be skeptical of the numbers, but I think if it on the opposite end of that, if it was really as bad as even 5 million more dead, I don't think that's something that they could even keep a secret.
It'd be really hard.
So it's probably more than the number that they're saying, but it's probably also not. It can't be that bad. Otherwise, I think we'd know.
Yeah, I think as Wuhan opens up again, I think there's going to be bits of information that kind of get out. But China's pretty good at keeping information on the DL. It's true. Come on. Yeah. So we'll see what happens with that. What's interesting is this movie kicks off in Hong Kong instead of the interior of China. So that's to get into the movie itself, Contagion.
And it kicks off on day 2.
Because it's a whodunit.
Yeah. It's a whodunit. It's a good point. So Gwyneth Paltrow's character essentially dies very early on in the movie, and Matt Damon...
Yeah, like immediately.
She failed to respond. Okay. And her heart stopped, and unfortunately, she did die.
Right.
I'm sorry, Mr. Emmo.
I know this is hard to accept.
Okay. So can I go talk to her?
Mr. Emhoff, I'm sorry. Your wife is dead.
Yeah, I mean, I just saw her. We were just at home.
Is there somebody that we can call? Someone who you think should be here with you?
We had dinner. We had pizza. She said she was jet lagged.
Some people get a disease and live. Some get sicker and die. Now, we're going to have to notify the medical examiner, and they may request an autopsy. Or if you wish, we can order one. But I can't guarantee it's going to tell you any more than I can. I mean, my best guess is that this was either meningitis or encephalitis, and with encephalitis, we're in the dark a lot of the time. If it was summer, I might say a bug bite, West Nile. Herpes can cause encephalitis.
She doesn't have herpes. What are you talking about? Okay. What happened to her?
And the thing that struck me in this opening scene, and again, Steven Soderbergh does an incredible job of emphasizing all the touch points. Like there's like a close-up of the mixed nuts on the airport bar where Gwyneth Paltrow is. It pans over to the screen where the waiter or the bartender is putting in the information. So, obviously like a touch screen with the fingers, like just in that opening scene, or that not opening scene, but in that scene where she's at the airport bar, all these little moments when your hands are touching different surfaces are emphasized. It's not subtle. It's pretty, overt.
Yeah. It's introducing the monster of the movie, which are peanuts. There are many instances where you see examples where you kind of hang on something that someone touches, and it's this invisible monster that's kind of looming everywhere.
Yeah. I mean, it goes from, this guy's wife dying to then his son dying. It's just, I'm very recently a father, so it's one of those things where the devastation of that, I'm just imagining losing your wife and your son. Now, it was a stepson. It sounds really callous, and I apologize.
It was a step death.
That is pretty bad, isn't it? But it was clearly, devastating for Mr. Matt Damon.
And she was cheating on him, so maybe she had it coming.
It's all karma? Is that what it is?
What a crazy scene that was, too, where, so we're introducing Matt Damon's character through this devastation, pretty much, and then he's essentially being interviewed by Kate Winslet's character, she's interviewing Matt Damon, and then through this conversation, you discover that Gwyneth Paltrow, on the way from her Hong Kong trip, stops in Chicago on a layover and sleeps with another dude, who then eventually also dies from the disease. And so Matt Damon not only is processing this terrible devastation with his wife, but in the meantime also had slept with someone else right before she died. So just side note, Kate Winslet, I think, steals the show in this for me, but she is an amazing performance, I think, in this.
Did she mention seeing anyone who was sick? Anyone on a plane?
No.
She went through customs in Chicago at 11:15 a.m. and then took a flight to Minneapolis at 6 p.m. Any idea what she did in Chicago during that layover? Did she have meetings? Is there any reason she might have left the airport?
Why? I mean, is there someone sick in Chicago?
We're investigating all the
No, I think I have a right to know. Look at where I am here. Look at where I am here.
I can't.
I
can't disclose
I'm
that
just
information.
trying to
I'm
understand.
sorry. I know.
Not a fun day for Matt Damon.
One of my criticisms of the movie, I think, is that there's a double-edged sword where, in order to tell the story effectively, I think you need to have all the points of view that they have. So you've got basically the point of view from just a family. You've got someone that's clearly taking advantage of the situation in a way to make money. You've got people from the CDC. Then you've got Marion Cotillard's character, who I think works with the WHO, maybe. And
Yes. Yep.
And so you've got all these points of view, but I think it can sometimes make it hard to feel connected to the characters because they only get a certain amount of screen time. And so maybe Kate Winslet, I think, would be probably the character that I would feel connected to the most, but I think it's just tough with all the different points of view in one movie. But that's just me.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
I think I know Andrew's a big fan of the Kate Winslet character. And I think she does shine in this movie. So I think part of that's her performance too, Chris, kind of draws you in.
I connected with Dr. I think Hextall. I forget what the actress's name is. She's Meryl Streep's daughter. She ultimately tests the vaccine on herself. I connected with her a lot.
Yeah, you're right. She's a good character too.
Yeah, she is.
If we even had a viable vaccine right now, we would still have to do human trials, and that would take weeks. And then we would have to get clearance and approval, figure out manufacturing and distribution. That would take months. And then train survivors to give inoculations. More months, more deaths.
Well, Homeland Security wants to know if we could put a vaccination in the water supply, like fluoride, cure everyone all at once.
I'm going home now, Alice. It's getting late. Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas.
I think you get to see more of like her personal side and then her professional side. So I connected with her.
I don't know. I think Dimitri Martin is who I really connected with. I feel like I got an idea. He liked Thanksgiving, and he was disappointed when he wasn't asked about it. So I feel for Dimitri.
That's so funny. Yeah, what a surprise casting right there.
Oh, man.
So I stepped away for a little bit to tend to the baby. Have we talked about Gwyneth Paltrow's head yet?
The cranium? The autopsy?
Yeah, when they open her head. So that head is actually an unused prop from Seven.
Really?
Yes, that's a great bit of trivia.
For those who don't know.
Sorry, spoiler alert for Seven.
How cool is that?
Oh yeah. I'm sorry, but if you haven't watched Seven yet, it's on you.
It's your fault.
It's a classic.
I wonder how
Go
they
check it out.
acquired that prop.
It's probably in the Warner Brothers law, and they're like, "Oh, we already have this. Great."
Perfect.
I'm sure Fincher and Sonnenberg are like friendly. It's like, hey, you need that Gwyneth head? Perfect.
We got that Gwyneth head in storage. Something you need?
It's like, oh yeah, I've got it in the garage there.
So creepy. I think that comes out later in the movie, kind of.
What?
Because they discover like her
The Gwyneth head.
brainstem being like liquefied.
Yeah, and the guy working with the doctor is just like, should I call somebody? And he's like, call everyone.
Well, the salt sire obliterated. Let's look at the base.
You want me to
take a sample? Or?
I want you to move away from the table.
Should I call someone?
Call everyone.
He's like, what do you want me to do right now? I want you to go away.
Just go.
Yeah,
But like
move away.
when they're doing the, I mean, I imagine that doctor probably died because they were cutting the head open and a bunch of blood spurted on his face mask.
Yeah.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. Ugh. Yeah, that was probably the most like, because the movie's super serious, pretty much throughout the entire film, but when the blood splats on his mask, it's sort of like it kind of, at least for me, had this like B movie horror vibe where it just kind of like, and then just he's just like, oh, there's a normal day at the office. It's like no biggie.
It's probably true in most cases.
Yeah, I guess you're right.
Well, the other thing that struck me, I mean, just kind of following along what takes place when Mears gets sent to Montana to sort of help assist the local government with the response, like the scene in which they're talking about, like, you know, the bureaucracy of trying to shut things down, and you know, whose budget's that coming out of, yours or mine? Like,
So this is Kate Winslet's character.
Minnesota. Yeah, when they're in Minnesota, and like,
That's because that one lady is like, oh, we're gonna have to do this.
I think we need to consider closing the schools down.
And who stays home with the kids? People that work at stores, government workers, people that work at hospitals. When will we know what this is? What causes it? What cures it? Things that keep people calm.
For every person who gets sick, how many other people are they likely to infect? So, for seasonal flu, that's usually about 1. Smallpox, on the other hand, it's over 3. Now, before we had a vaccine, polio spread at a rate between 4 and 6. Now, we call that number the R naught. R stands for the reproductive rate of the virus.
Any ideas what that might be for this?
How fast it multiplies depends on a variety of factors. The incubation period, how long a person is contagious. Sometimes people can be contagious without even having symptoms. We need to know that too.
So far, that appears to be everyone with hands, a mouth, and a nose.
Yeah, the resistance to, you know, the people not taking it seriously. And I have to imagine that, looking at our situation right now, when and if this happens again in the future, like, people, I think, will be more apt to be willing to listen and hopefully take action faster based off of what's actually happened here in the real world. I like to think that anyway. I don't know if that's true or not.
That lady, though, in the scene where Kate Winslet's sort of explaining, I'm going to totally butcher this whole thing, but when she's explaining essentially the spread,
the
like,
R naught.
so the R naught, exactly, that scene. But that one naysayer in the room, just everything she said, I was just like, shut the fuck up. It's terrible.
You're very angry.
Yeah, it's like a bad focus group or something. There's like always that one person that turns the whole group.
Mm-hmm. And then can we talk about chloroquine? I mean, forsythia?
As well. Alan's a freelance journalist. He was the first to track the Shinko Busman video. Alan, today on Twitter, you wrote that the truth about this virus is being kept from the world by the CDC, by the World Health Organization, to allow friends of the current administration to benefit from it, both financially and physically.
There are therapies we know are effective right now, like forsythia, and they don't even appear on the CDC website.
On your blog, you also wrote that the World Health Organization is somehow in bed with pharmaceutical companies?
Because they are. That's who stands to gain from this. They're working hand in glove.
What's our forsythia?
Well, right now it's chloroquine, but the difference is chloroquine is an actual, like, is an effective drug. But, like, I'm talking more like the fact that people were, you know, there was that couple in, I can't remember which state,
that took
who took chloroquine.
It was like essentially fish food or something. Or
No, it's a fish tank cleaner.
Fish cleaner. Yeah.
Yeah, it had chloroquine in it, and they thought, oh, if I, you know, take this, then I will be.
Yeah, the husband died, the wife survived, but just barely.
So it's just, you know, it's people using something that isn't necessarily shown to be properly effective as of this moment.
an example of someone using their platform to spread misinformation.
Indeed, Andrew.
Oh God, we're all gonna die.
One of the problems with having like elevating chloroquine is that because it's actually used for illnesses like other illnesses, suddenly having a shortage of it can obviously affect people's lives. Whereas in the movie, Forsythia is some homeopathic thing that I don't know if it is meant to have an actual medicinal purpose, and so the difference being that in the movie, the fact that people are taking a bunch of Forsythia probably doesn't impact people that would normally use Forsythia for a treatment, whereas in real life, you've got people like with malaria that don't have access to it because you have everyone else trying to take it.
Yeah, there's supposedly pharmacies or pharmacists that were hoarding it, which is terrifying. Like, that seems unethical.
Yeah, it's an example of where the real life example is worse than the movie version.
Yeah, I suppose that's true. We don't even know if it's really going to be effective against COVID, so it just got approved by the FDA for testing, but it's, we really don't know. So, just like Forsythia.
Thankfully, Crumweedy gets his comeuppance.
Yes, it's true. Is it Crumweedy?
Yeah, that's the guy's last name. That's Jude Law's last name.
Oh.
I don't know why you trust the guy.
Name, isn't it?
We don't know anybody's name in this movie.
No, we mostly call him like Matt Damon and Gwyneth Paltrow.
I thought that was like some weird garnish.
It's a weird name.
I thought it was a Jude Law character from a different movie.
That's funny.
Oh, Chris using the proper name, and I'm just like very confused.
We need that. Good on you, Chris. Bad on us.
Come on, guys, catch up.
Yeah, it's true. We do need to catch up.
On a similar thing about the like hoarding and the looting, and it's funny, like, well, not funny, it's actually a really sad scene where like Matt Damon sees somebody like breaking into his neighbor's house and like looting the house, and then he goes in the next day. One of the least realistic parts of that scene was seeing like was it a
There's like a little like tub, or like, what do you call it, like a dispenser for
Clorox wipes that was left behind.
Oh.
That wouldn't have been left behind.
No way.
No way would that be left behind. So we thought, that was
definitely, there would be no toilet paper.
Nope. No toilet paper.
Not a one.
No hand sanitizer.
Not a single sheet in sight.
By the way, they're rationing toilet paper, at least in Florida. People can only buy two sheets.
Two rolls. Oh my God, 2 sheets. 2 rolls at a time.
2 rolls at a time.
2 rolls?
Can you spare a square?
Could you spare a square?
I don't have a spare to square.
Oh, spare a square, man. What's that from? That's from
It's
Friends?
from Seinfeld.
Oh, of course it's Seinfeld. Yeah, of course.
God,
it's like
hold
one of
on. Sorry, the 2 rolls is blowing my mind. That's if I just have one bad day, that's I would have to go to the store the day after.
Go to the doctor.
Hey,
if you go through a whole roll on your own in a single day, then you definitely do.
You need to go to the doctor.
Yeah.
I'm just reminded of was it Parks and Rec?
Don't go right now. Hospitals are not a good place to go right now.
Yeah, don't go to the hospital. Telemedicine or something. I don't know.
Telemedicine. I mean, really, it's just my quarantine diet is mainly tacos. So.
An Easy Mac, probably.
Yeah, there's been some
Just
Easy
need more
Mac.
fiber.
Some smoothies and salads. I'm taking care of myself.
Oh man.
Okay, good. You got your roughage.
Get some greens. It's good. Smart. We actually have been cooking quite a bit, but that's for a different podcast.
That's the food podcast.
I'm sure there are a lot of food podcasts that are covering like
recipes,
quarantine type cooking.
I'll say that, yeah. Well, going back to the movie, sorry. I'm going to steer us back.
That's a good idea.
The looting was really terrifying. That is something that I really hope we don't get to.
Yeah.
Folks, attention. We appreciate your patience, and we're doing the best we can. We have exhausted our supply of meals ready to eat for today. What? Please remain calm. You'll be set free. Hey, can we get some help over here?
That really impacted me. And just seeing like people like chasing down the military trucks to get food, that was scary.
Yeah.
I think because I saw this movie before they closed where I work. I had seen Contagion. It was around that same time that like I had terrible just ideas in my head about looting and just us living in a world where that was happening, and this movie definitely influenced that, I would say. And it's
Very reinforced.
Yeah, it's really terrifying, and that's, luckily we've seen a lot of positive stuff from a community standpoint through our crisis, but we all got to be there for each other to avoid what happens in Contagion.
But it's so hard to be there for each other in this regard, like, because we're being told to don't be out doing things.
Well,
like,
be there by checking in.
yeah, I mean that's essentially it. It's like it's helping people deal with the isolation more so than like me. Yeah, like so if a friend of mine says, Jeff, shit, we're out of toilet paper, like if we have some stuff, we do have things to share. Not like a infinite amount by any means, but but that's like about
spare a square.
We can spare a square.
Well, we were talking about it earlier this week when we found out about Florida. We're thinking about like mailing some people we know there like some toilet paper, and then we're like, oh shit, we have to go to the like post office and deal with that shenanigan.
See, people just need to get on with the.
It's very weird.
What I've been doing for years is the shit shower shave
Done.
combo.
Get on board. I like the bidets. That's what I'm hoping for.
Wait, what'd you say there?
Yeah, the French don't.
I like the bidets. That's what I like.
I've never tried one of those.
Dude, it's very refined of you, Jeff.
They're life changers. We don't own one here in the home, unfortunately, but in Japan, they're pretty much everywhere. And if you ever go to the Aria Hotel in Vegas, every bathroom has one.
Well, just bring the hose in from outside.
Easy, done.
Or just go outside.
The ones in Tokyo are a little bit intimidating though, because they have so many buttons.
Interesting.
Yeah.
One cool feature though is that like you can like activate like noise to cover up anything that's going on in the bathroom if you're in a public bathroom. It's phenomenal.
Innovation.
It's so silly. Oh man. Well, there's like you can turn on then like once you've sprayed, you have like a mini hair dryer essentially like that dries your bottom.
Ooh.
Man, they're so ridiculous.
Yeah, they're fancy.
Yeah.
And they're everywhere.
I gotta try me one.
It's nice.
One of these days.
Well, should we talk about the final reveal of the movie, the day one?
Yeah.
Chris, why don't you tell us who was it, Chris?
It turns out that it was in fact, well, obviously, the founder of Goop was Patient Zero, but it does a really good job kind of showcasing, I think, I'm not sure, I'm assuming it's on purpose, but it showcases how human intervention is a big reason for this happening, because essentially you've got this bulldozer that knocks down a banana tree and some bats get disturbed, and as a result the bat heads to a pig farm, and he's taken some of that banana with him, and a pig ends up eating some of that banana, and that pig gets slaughtered. And I don't know why the chef didn't wash his hands before shaking Gwyneth Paltrow's hands, but it does kind of show how it goes from nature to us pretty easily.
What was he doing in the pig's mouth again? Was he like putting?
He's stuffing it with herbs, preparing it for cooking.
Yeah, he's like stuffing things in the mouth of the pig.
I thought he was going to be the one to get disinfected. I thought he was going to cut his hands in the mouth.
Interesting.
But nope.
I assume he died.
Yeah, we don't really know what happens to the chef, do we?
Well, I think because from what I could gather from this is like the disease ultimately, or the infection, was on his hands, and that got into what Gwyneth Paltrow consumed just by virtue of it being on from that handshake.
Yeah.
From her drink, yeah.
Well, because she goes and gets a martini, and so she touches with her dirty hand the martini glass and then drinks from it. So for all we know, the chef survived.
Well, I think the might have been like, oh, I don't know where Gwyneth Paltrow has been, and then he washed his hands.
Right, exactly.
I don't know where that lady been.
Yeah.
Yeah, because her waiter was lucky.
I mean,
No.
it's so crazy to think about it this way, but like this all potentially could have not have been an issue if he just washed his hands.
So
That's like one of the first things they say like in the movie was like, oh, the best prevention is washing your hands, and made me think so much of what we keep on hearing.
And here's our good deed, guys. This is our PSA to anyone listening. Wash your hands.
Wash your damn hands. Do it right now. Do it
Yeah.
right now.
This is your reminder.
Go do it. Just clean those hands right now.
Happy birthday.
Are you washing your hands? You better be washing those hands right now.
All right. Hopefully you wash your hands.
Good job
You paused
washing
this and you went to wash your hands and now you're back. Well done. So I was thinking about our rating system. We give it a 1 through 10 of body bags, but I know we had a discussion last time that the lower the body bags, the better the movie. But hear me out. I think it actually should be the higher the body bags, the better the movie, because we're watching pandemic movies. And I feel like it's appropriate that if it has a bunch of body bags, it means it's a good movie.
It's such a dark rating system.
Yeah, I'm almost hesitant with this rating system.
Is it because people just like so it gets so inconsiderate? It's so
dark.
It's so macabre. I don't know, man.
It's too dark for it. Might be.
I'm with Cammy. It's pretty dark.
People may accuse us of being
too cavalier about this.
Callous. Well, then what about?
All right, face mask.
How many? Okay, face mask is not. It's visually.
Toilet paper rolls. How many toilet paper rolls do you give us?
Oh my god, that's perfect. Toilet paper rolls.
Yep. I second Cammy.
Yeah,
I second toilet paper rolls. That's a good one.
All right, so 1 through 10 toilet paper rolls.
I like it so much.
We need to come up with a nice little image, and we can. I don't know where we can put it, but maybe there's a toilet paper emoji out there.
That should be our logo.
The toilet paper roll.
Amazing.
Yeah.
I feel like that's done. I love how like the podcast itself is how we actually come up with the ideas for the podcast.
Yeah, no, this full transparency.
Yeah. All right, so we didn't really do favorite scenes, did we? We did it last time. We didn't do it this time. Does anyone have a particular favorite scene?
My favorite scene is is it the Are Not? That scene is by far my favorite, just because I think Kate Winslet's performance is so good. You see just how fucking smart she is, and the blood pressure that I felt based on this one woman, this naysayer, I was literally by myself screaming at the TV screen. It was just like, shut the fuck up. And yeah, I mean, that to me, I think is such a good way to kind of set up the rest of the movie too, and especially her arc.
What about you, Chris? You still thinking, or do you have your favorite scene?
I think the origin story at the very end, I think, is my favorite. Just because it shows just the different parts of how this came to be, and especially with how they're still trying to figure out exactly, how COVID-19 came about, whether it was a bat or a pangolin or whatever it was, and it shows the danger, even on accident, that animals can have an influence on us, that we aren't always prepared for.
I think it's actually, I'm with you, Chris. I think it's a combination of the opening scene with the sort of the visuals of the touching, and then the final scene. I think there's such great bookends, and I think they work really, really well together. And I think I like how the final scene is almost montage-like. The music, we haven't really even talked about the music in this movie yet, which maybe we can talk about that in a second. But I think I'm with you, Chris. I like that final sequence, but I also like the way the opening also, I think, is striking. So I like those two together.
For me, it was just, the wishful thinking, I guess. I really enjoyed seeing the rollout of the vaccine. It gave you so much relief.
That's fun.
Especially because the the like first birthday that they mentioned gets the vaccine, that's my birthday. So I was like, oh great, I'm saved.
Lucky Cammy.
Yeah, but it was just so nice to see the guy from the CDC like saving the janitor's son's life.
Yeah, giving him the vaccine. Yeah.
Especially after seeing like the little boy die in the beginning, I was like, oh my god, I hope somebody, like some other kid, survives. And so it was nice to see him get the vaccine as well.
Yeah. It was sweet though, the prom scene too.
Yeah, that was sweet.
Although
sweet scene.
terrible music choice with fucking U2.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I kind of agree
It's
with you
like,
on that.
are these
It was a different
teenagers
time.
really queuing up Bono for their prom?
It was 2011.
11?
I think U2 was still cool at that time. I think it was right before.
Is U2 not cool now?
Hmm?
Is U2 not cool now?
Well, after Apple forced it on everybody, I think it put a bad taste in everybody's mouth.
That's true.
Oh. Goes to show how tough I am.
Yeah. What? Okay, so the music actually in the movie, just speaking of music, it kind of reminded me a bit of Social Network. Cammy disagreed with me, but like the thumping, kind of not EDM, but there's kind of a electronic vibe to it, and it was very kind of relentless. I don't know. It reminded me a little bit of Social Network.
I'd
Did anyone
agree
else
with
get that vibe?
I
at all?
mean, I'm curious who the composer was. I don't know off the top of my head, but
His name was Cliff Martinez.
oh, did he do
Hannah?
No, that's the Chemical
Brothers. There were many moments where I was like, this kind of sounds like
Chemical Brothers.
Andrew, your AirPods sound like you're a robot, by the way. I know you're recording this separately on your phone, but it's ridiculous sounding. It just changed a little
Sound
bit.
like a robot.
It's like in Metal Gear Solid when Colonel Campbell slowly turns into a computer program.
Hold on.
Chris, you're absolutely right.
Can you hear
Like 100%.
Electronic music and suddenly like, Andrew transformed.
So weird. Oh my goodness.
Nope.
Yeah, I don't know. Nope, it sounds ridiculous. Chris, are you hearing it too?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
You're like a digital werewolf.
It's still bad. It's still bad.
Can we keep going this way, or should we stop it?
No, I mean, we're coming near the end anyway.
This is your life
No, we'll live. Do we want to do our toilet paper
rating.
ratings?
Yeah, our non-body bag now toilet paper.
Yeah.
Much more positive.
Yeah. So Andrew, how many toilet papers?
Rolls.
I think, especially considering the context of now, like I mean, God, we're not doing halves. We're not doing half toilet papers, right?
Nope. No halves.
Okay.
Only whole toilet
Man,
paper rolls.
I'm
Just want a half.
trying to
We
do.
feel like betrayal because that's my show.
I'm between 8 and maybe even 9.
Come on,
fuck
dude.
it,
Be
fuck it,
definitive.
9,
Make a choice.
9. Fuck it, 9. I love this movie. I think it's
All right.
really good.
I'm with you, Andrew. I'd give it 9 toilet paper rolls. I think it struck me as incredibly relevant. It terrified me, and it's such a well put together movie. I really enjoyed it. I'm giving it 9 toilet paper rolls.
I'd give it an 8 as well.
You're the first to give it an 8.
Oh, sorry. Andrew almost gave it an 8.
I almost gave it an 8.
I give it an 8. Sorry. One of the things I want to like discuss before we like finish up the rating was the character of Jude Law just really giving the heebie-jeebies.
Yeah.
Because that misinformation is honestly one of the most dangerous parts of Contagion.
I probably would also. I'm with Cammy. I think I'd give it an 8. The only real criticism I had, I think, was just, again, I still think it's tough to connect to a lot of those characters just because you're following a lot of them. Similar to when Soderbergh does Traffic, and you're bouncing around between different places and different characters, and so you don't get a ton of screen time with just one. but given how relevant it seems like we're in the early stages of this movie.
We're about 30 minutes in.
Yeah, and so it's kind of spooky the way that we're living through some similarities. But again, the tricky thing is, just like with Outbreak, after 2 hours, the conflict has been resolved, and they found a vaccine, and we're not in a movie, and so that makes it extra scary. But it doesn't take away from the movie. So I agree. 8 toilet paper rolls.
Nice.
You know, it's funny. I feel like Outbreak was a much lighter podcast. This one was definitely a bit more subdued, yet our rating system is much more outlandish than the last one.
We had to find a way to find a contrast.
Yeah, like this movie, the only uplifting thing it had, well, like silly thing it had, was the casting between like Dimitri Martin, like Jack Geller being one of the doctors early on.
Dr. Sussman.
Dr. Sussman, yeah, was the dad in Friends. Who else made me laugh? There was like another weird casting in there, but yeah, there's nothing else worth laughing about in this movie.
There's nothing
It's
funny.
so dark.
Like there are moments where I think they try and bring like a slight bit of levity, but again, like the Dimitri Martin bit where he's, thanks for asking about my Thanksgiving. Like,
yeah,
it's just that's the only thing I can think of where it's like, they're trying to be kind of silly.
There's
Not a silly movie.
There's that great quote that Dr. Sussman says to Crumweedy when he ambushes him outside of his office, and he says,
Blogging is not writing, it's graffiti with punctuation.
I am a journalist, and there's informed discussion on the blogosphere that this is a biological weapon.
You want to talk to me, call my office and make an appointment.
Oh, so good.
So that's
a good one.
Funny.
Yeah, it's true. Man, that dude has 12 million people. Unique. He always has unique visitors. That was always the.
As somebody who's worked in social media, that really irked me. I was just like, oh, get a job.
Hey man, he made money doing it.
He did. But,
he also is going to go to jail for a long
dirty
time.
way. Well, he's not made bail.
No, he made bail.
He did. That's right.
Yeah, all of his followers banded up together to save him. And that's the scariest thing. Like I said about this movie, is just so many people are giving bad information. They have a lot of followers, and it's really hard to take them down.
Is he the Alex Jones of this movie?
He kind of is Alex Jonesy.
I'd agree. Yep.
Interesting.
But he's more convincing. Like he has almost an air of knowing things, whereas I would say that Alex Jones is quite strikingly crazy looking and
theatrical.
Take him seriously.
Actually, in the last 24 hours, he was taken off of Google Play.
Yeah, he was. Alex Jones was taken off Google Play.
For something he said about coronavirus.
Yep, something about coronavirus.
Oh, good.
Yeah. Well, there's a lot of things out there right now. Like there's some sort of evangelical or some sort of religious show that was talking about using silver to combat coronavirus, and this is all.
Oh yeah, Jim Bakker.
It's also like a super church that's like having a service with like thousands of people, and they're saying that they have a machine that targets the virus and kills it instantly.
So there's no lack of people in our world in the real world and in the non-movie world who are espousing bad information, claiming things that are
dangerously
untrue,
wrong,
dangerous. So again, this is a character in the movie representative of a large faction of people from real life. In character form.
Another example of someone using their platform to spread misinformation for financial gain.
Are you thinking of someone in politics?
Potentially.
A polarizing figure, perhaps.
Oh, just complete side note. I just found out recently that Steve Mnuchin is an executive producer on a bunch of movies. Like, for example, I didn't know that. That's news to me. He did like Suicide Squad and stuff.
Did you see Suicide Squad in theaters, Andrew?
I don't remember. Yes, I did probably.
Sorry, that was a very.
When you held that, it was the funniest sounding. It was so weird sounding. Like I can't recreate it. I can't do your weird robot voice right now. That was very funny though. Sorry, that completely killed me.
And Andrew, what I was going to say is you gave money to Steve Mnuchin then. Well done.
Well, he's now giving me some money, so.
That's not him, Andrew. That's the taxpayers. Dude, okay, on a completely separate note on the money, by the way, there was a company in Oklahoma City that said to their employees that they were going to take $1,200 out of their paycheck because of the money that they're going to get from the government.
What?
That's bullshit.
And they were going to take another $250 out of the $500 that they're going to get for dependents.
Oh my God.
Well, fuck that.
How fucked up is that?
That's some bullshit.
Crazy, man. Where did you read that?
Yeah.
What's the?
And
I want to look that up.
It was a Reddit post, but they essentially there's a bunch of different articles about it. What happened was an employee leaked the email that talked about it. I know it was Oklahoma is where the company was. They do like printers and printer ink.
Yeah, they like
they're
they
consulting.
have contracts with like HP and a bunch of other larger companies.
Big companies. They're $100 million company, but just they got just ripped, obviously by the internet. They had to like close all their social media channels and
Anything that rated them, they had to shut down.
yeah.
Precision Printing Corporation is the name of the company.
Precision Printing.
I have it listed as ImageNet Consulting. Maybe there's two in Oklahoma.
I think there's maybe it might be the same company. But that was a pretty messed up thing, and they actually already laid off people too. So I don't know.
Yeah. Well, I can't wait for Contagion 2.
I don't want Contagion 2. I really don't want to watch Contagion 2. No desire
Yeah,
for it.
we're living it.
Yeah. Is there anything else we want to cover? Or anything else we need to cover for the movie?
No.
I don't think so.
I think that's it. Thank you, listeners, for spending probably over an hour with us, depending on how Andrew cuts this together. But thank you for spending this time with us talking about Contagion.
Might trim it just a tad.
There were some bits where the baby had to be dealt with.
And then Andrew turned into a robot.
Well, yeah, that was interesting. Still now. Regardless, thank you for listening to this apocalyptic, a pandemic podcast episode on Contagion, which was.
Do we know what our next episode will be? What the next film will be?
Are we gonna do The Road next?
We can do The Road.
I know that's one Chris wanted to do. So
Can we do one that's more lighthearted?
We could do This Is the End, I suppose.
We could do This Is the End, and then The Road is a palate cleanser for This Is the End.
This is the end. Not
let's
like
do that.
a pandemic movie, right?
No, it's an end of the world kind of thing. Apocalyptic.
Yeah, we need to change it up, because if we keep saying it's a pandemic podcast, but technically it's not. It's
no. It was like a phoenix rose from a pandemic.
Yeah, it's not that it's a pandemic podcast. Like it's just about pandemics. It's a pandemic podcast because it originates.
It's the result of a pandemic.
Yeah, as a result of a pandemic taking place in real life.
I think we need a new tagline.
But
I like that one.
Is This Is the End caused by a pandemic?
No, but it's apocalyptic. Apocalyptic.
Right.
Apocalyptic.
Yeah.
Apocalypse.
I think just pandemics are a portion of what we're covering in apocalyptic movies.
Well, whatever the fuck we're called, we'll be back with This Is the End.
Well, no, we can still be called apocalyptic. We just need a different tagline. So.
Yeah,
the tagline. I kind of liked it because I liked where you're coming from, Andrew, about it originating in a pandemic.
Wait,
but I think
podcast born of a pandemic, I think, is fine.
I think it's unclear if you read it on its own accord. So
yeah,
I think
we're not pigeonholing ourselves to just pandemic movies.
By the time you listen to this podcast, we'll know what this is.
Yeah, I think so. But thank you, everyone out there, and stay safe. Wash your hands. Stay
Love
6
you
feet
all.
apart. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you. Good night and good luck.